Hey there. The other day, I was talking to a friend who uses ChatGPT on a regular basis, which, same girl. And he's also currently working on his English. Eventually, the conversation shifted to how I use ChatGPT to learn and practice Japanese, and I think I kind of blew his mind. He genuinely didn't know you could use it like this, so I thought maybe some of you are using ChatGPT already, but not using it to its full potential for language learning. Quick disclaimer, I use the premium version of ChatGPT, so results might vary slightly depending on which version you're using. That said, everything I'm about to show you should work perfectly fine on the regular version too. Hopefully, you won't have to sell off one of your kidneys on the black market for this. Anyway, throughout the video, I will be showing you screenshots of how I use ChatGPT exactly so I can sort of illustrate what I'm saying. But on ChatGPT, basically, there's a feature called projects, and I use it all the time. It's perfect for anything that requires multiple chats, or if you just want everything neatly organized and easy to find, since projects stay pinned at the top. For Japanese, I created a dedicated Japanese study project, and inside it, I've set up different chats for different purposes. It's honestly worth taking a few minutes to organize things properly, otherwise it makes things harder to navigate. And yes, being overly organized is definitely my toxic trait. So my first chat is called Words, Meaning and Nuance, and this one is for asking questions about vocabulary that I encounter while studying or consuming content in Japanese. I'll ask for translations, detailed explanations, example sentences, or the difference between two similar words. Basically, if it's vocab related, it lives here. Then we have reading practice, and this one is for generating texts so I can practice reading. I don't use it all the time, but it's incredibly flexible. You can ask ChatGPT to generate a text that matches your current level, which is already useful on its own. But you can go a step further and give it, say, 15 words you're trying to learn, and ask ChatGPT to write a short story using all of them. And if the combination of words you're sort of working on are a bit random, it could give funny results. Probably. You can also ask ChatGPT to include a specific grammar point or tense you're working on. For example, you could write, generate a text that uses 5 past tense verbs and 5 present tense verbs. You can even turn it into a reading comprehension by asking, for example, a B1 level text with 5 comprehension questions. Then you can answer these questions in English, if that's kind of easier, or in your target language for extra practice. You could also write a summary of the text that ChatGPT generated for you and have ChatGPT evaluate how accurate your summary is. Essentially, you can turn ChatGPT into a graded reader, except that it actually gives you exactly what you ask for. The third, I can never say it easily, the third chat that I have is a level check. This one is kind of optional, but it's basically to help me figure out the level of the words I come across. I'm currently working through a 6K vocabulary deck on Anki, and the order isn't always logical, and sometimes a word pops up that's way above my level. And since I'm around N4, so kind of high beginner, if a word is clearly too advanced, I don't want to spend too much time on it yet, unless I feel like it's genuinely useful. My reasoning behind it is pretty simple. If a word is way too far beyond my current level, it's probably not the best use of my energy right now. It doesn't mean I will never learn it, it just means I will learn it later. I'd rather focus on the words that actually match where I am. And I'm anticipating a question, which is basically why not just do that in the vocab chat? And the reason is just purely practical, to be honest. It's just that after a while, the chat will run out of space. Like ChatGPT will tell you no more. and that means you have to create a new one. So to avoid doing that too often, I just created 2 different chats. But you could definitely do that in one single chat if that's easier. The next chat is for speaking and pronunciation. This chat is pretty self-explanatory. In it, I only use the speech-to-text feature. So instead of typing, I'm actually speaking the sentences. Recently, I've been trying to use it to help me tell short real-life stories in Japanese. I'm still a beginner, so what I do is I first tell the story in English so ChatGPT has the full context, and then I ask it to help me tell the same story in Japanese using N for grammar and vocabulary as much as possible. N4 being beginner level if you've followed me so far. Of course, in my case, it needs to be a daily life story. Don't try to give a beginner level presentation about why the Earth is flat, for example. I'm kidding, don't do that. The key here is to not just ask for translation. Instead, ask ChatGPT to guide you through the answer. For example, if you're trying to say, I watched a movie yesterday, say as much as you can in your target language first, and then ask ChatGPT to help you come up with the rest. Just to make sure I'm perfectly clear, let's imagine you know how to say yesterday, but you're not sure how to say I watched a movie. ChatGPT can help you break it down step by step by asking you sort of leading questions like how do you say to watch? How do you say movie? And how do you put watch in the past tense, etc., etc. Basically, it's not just feeding you the answer, it's helping you, work out the answer. That way, you're building the sentence piece by piece instead of passively receiving the answer. If you encounter a new word, you learn it. If you're unsure about grammar, then the next section will be of interest to you. But overall, I think this chat is a very effective way to identify your vocab and grammar gaps in real time. And the next chat is grammar and usage questions. This one is purely for grammar questions. Either I'll ask for a full explanation if I don't know the grammar concept at all, or I can ask more specific questions for clarifications or example sentences and so on and so forth. For example, I might ask, can you use this grammar point in this context? Or if I say it this way, would it be correct? Etc., etc. It's basically my dedicated space to clear up any grammar confusion without mixing it with everything else. Next up, we have writing and translation. This one is for practicing grammar. I know translation gets a bad rep online, but I really believe it has its place in language learning. Personally, it's one of my favorite ways to practice grammar. I'll pick a grammar point, let's say the past tense, and I ask ChatGPT to give me 5 sentences in English, which I then have to translate into Japanese. I also make sure it keeps everything within my level because sometimes it sort of forgets, so you have to remind it. Then I translate the sentences and I ask for detailed feedback, what I did well, what I got wrong, and how I can improve. For fun, I also like to ask ChatGPT to give me a percentage of understandability. You don't have to, but it's kind of like a fun thing for me. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm boring. I don't know. If you want to avoid translation and do pure writing, you can also ask ChatGPT to give you prompts to write about. For example, it can ask you to talk about the last holiday you've been on using at least 3 conditional verbs or something like that. Or you can even ask ChatGPT to write a text in the present tense and you have to rewrite it in the past tense. Or you can ask it to generate 10 sentences with mistakes and you have to fix them. Or to generate 10 sentences and you decide if they're right or wrong. These last few exercises move slightly away from pure writing, but I thought I'd mention them anyway. As you can see, there's so many ways to turn ChatGPT into active writing practice. The next chat that I have is called Reading Breakdowns, and this one is for when I'm reading manga in Japanese. At the moment, I'm working on my way through the entire Yotsubato series, and while I can understand quite a bit, there's still definitely a lot that goes over my head. Here is how I use ChatGPT to help me with this. Whenever I'm reading and I'm stuck on a page, I'll take a picture of the page and I send it to ChatGPT and I ask it to break down the sentences. I'm not really interested in a straight translation because that's not quite the goal. What I want is to understand the structure of the sentences and how they're built. And if I come across a new word, then I'm learning it in context. ChatGPT is actually pretty good at analyzing manga panels. It does make mistakes sometimes, as in it might miss a line here and there, or it might not, read properly if the picture is kind of blurry, so you have to be careful with that. But overall, it's a really solid support tool. And something just came to mind, it's not on my script, but you could also use it when watching content with subtitles. It might be a bit more tricky because you're giving it less context, you're giving just an image and text, but it's worth a try, maybe. Another chat that I have is Resources and Tools Library. This one is not really language learning per se, it's more of a space where I can ask for recommendations and ideas for resources I can use. I haven't used it that much yet, but I'm sure I'll rely on it more in the future to find things to read or to watch or whatever it may be. Potentially, you could use it to find textbooks, to practice, Chinese characters or something like that. And finally, the final chat I have is called the Study Organizer and Roadmap. This chat is for those days when I simply cannot be asked to plan my study sessions, to be honest. I just tell ChatGPT how much time I have, and it suggests what I can realistically do within that window. It's perfect for low energy days when you don't want to make decisions and would rather be told what to do. But it's also useful if you have a specific goal in mind, like passing the N4 exam, being able to read manga comfortably, talking about a hobby more naturally, going on holiday, etc., etc. In those cases, ChatGPT can help you outline a structured plan. Now, I wouldn't recommend following it blindly. It's still AI. I mean, it's a robot at the end of the day. It's not always going to be perfectly calibrated to you, but you can absolutely use its suggestions as inspiration and adapt them to your own pace and needs. So that's essentially how I'm using ChatGPT to learn Japanese. It's not just a chat with random prompts all over the place. I actually tried to build a system around it. If you're already using ChatGPT for language learning, I would love to know how you do it. And if you're not, hopefully this video will have given you some ideas of things to try. Either way, let me know in the comment section below. And if you have watched the video until the end, I would like you to drop the emoji that you think fits the video best. I want to see what the consensus is. Alright, I will see you in a future video. Bye bye.